Today I'm going to be talking about PIPS tree structure. It was a 5-year program of research and it's now completed. The overall objective in PIPS 1 was to increase orchard productivity and efficiency by manipulating tree structure to optimise function. Today I'm going to present some key results concerning tree management that came out of PIPS, in particular with winter pruning beginning. I thought it'd be good to talk about the importance of optimising bud types, the number of buds and branches within canopies to maximise yield. In the first 2 years of PIPS, we set about understanding what were the most productive floral bud types in tree canopies. We set up experiments in 3 growing regions of Australia, Victoria, Tasmania and Queensland, and in 2 commercial cultivars, Cripps' Pink and Royal Gala. And what we found, to summarise 2 years very briefly, we found that spurs and terminal buds produced much larger fruit size at harvest than auxiliary buds on 1-year-old wood. Typically we got fruit that were 10 to 30 grams bigger, and the reason for the larger fruit size at harvest was the greater leaf area of these bud types compared with auxiliary buds, which have a much smaller leaf area to drive fruit growth. In terms of fruit maturity and fruit quality at harvest, there were no consistent differences amongst bud types for the different sites and cultivars. So the take-home message here is, if you can, try and crop spurs and terminal buds. They have greater fruit size potential. In years 3 and 4 of PIPS, we set about understanding what was the optimum tree structure for high yield and high fruit quality. In particular, what's the optimum number of branches do you need in a canopy? What's the optimum bud density? What's the optimum crop load? And here are 3 very important findings from PIPS. And the first one, I think if you're going home to prune your orchards, this is a really important number. You only need 6 branches per metre of tree height in a canopy to maximise light interception and productivity of that canopy. And this tree here is what we consider an ideal tree structure. It's got about 6 branches per metre of tree height. If you have more than 6, you don't increase light interception, you increase canopy shading. Less than 6, you will reduce light interception and reduce productivity of the canopy. I'll talk about this in a little more detail in a minute. In addition, branch orientation is really important. Tying a piece of string around a branch and bending it over keeps it fruitful, keeps it subdued for a long period of time. It stays in the canopy and it works for you for longer. If you don't and you tend to let branches grow vertical, they become strong and you have to prune them out sooner. While studying tree canopies in PIPS, we found that many canopies have way too many fruit buds, more than is necessary for a commercial crop. So in PIPS tree structure work, we used spur extinction to manually thin fruit buds during winter to a predetermined density. And what we found is that spur extinction gave us very predictable and reliable annual fruit set. We actually increased fruit set in many instances. We got regular cropping and bearing, greater fruit size and strong fruit bud development. This is an example of spur extinction being applied in early spring, and on the left is an unthinned branch. Its natural floral bud density is 14 buds per centimetre squared of branch cross-sectional area. That's 2/3 more than is necessary for a commercial fruit crop. So during spur extinction, in this case this is envy, but we've thinned the buds down to a final density of 5 floral buds per centimetre squared of BCA. And that branch will carry 5 fruit through to harvest. So in a sense it's already been pre-thinned. During spur thinning we remove buds that are weak, shaded underneath the branch. We leave the strongest buds, spurs or terminals in this instance, and spurs, and we space buds to optimise fruit distribution along the branches. In the next few slides I'd like to just give an example of why it is important to use metrics to manage tree canopies and how simple optimisation can increase productivity further. Embedded within the PIPS program was a study by Ken Breen, and Ken is a colleague of mine back in New Zealand. Ken was working within a high-performing block of raw gala in New Zealand, grown intensively on Mooling 9. The block regularly achieved 100 tonnes per hectare or higher of fruit per year, so it's a high-performing block. After winter pruning, Ken went in and he quantified the number of limbs in these tree canopies and also the density of buds that were present. So after pruning, there were 9 branches per metre of tree height. The first treatment was to reduce these by a third, so reduce the branch number from 9 down to 6. The second treatment was to reduce the number of spurs in the canopy from 12, which was the natural density, down to 6, so a 50% reduction in fruit bud number in the canopy. Let's look at the seasonal light interception. So this is for the trees with 9 limbs per metre of tree height. After full bloom, light interception increases. It reaches a maximum of around 60%. It remains constant over the season until leaf fall, where it begins to decline. But let's look what happens when we take out a third of the limbs. Nothing at all. We don't reduce light interception. We don't reduce productivity potential of this canopy. What we have done is we would have reduced shading massively. Now, what was really surprising in this work is removing a third of the limbs and 50% of the buds in the canopy did not decrease light interception. If anything, it tended to increase it. You see after full bloom, or before full bloom, around after full bloom, the light interception was not different among the treatments, but then the green line is the spur-thin canopies. You can see we get an increase here, and that remains for the rest of the season. And we suspect that was due to greater bush shoot development. That's an architectural change we get as we thin out more spurs from the canopy. We get stronger bush shoots. Now this is really important because it shows the final outcome, the yield, and it shows how optimising tree structure using simple metrics can maximise yield even of highly productive blocks. Let's look at what the grower achieved. It's pretty impressive, 117 tonnes of raw gala, mean fruit size of 152 grams, a little bit on the small side, but nevertheless a great effort. If we look at our optimised tree canopies, 129 tonnes per hectare, 170 grams mean fruit weight. If you look at the crop loads, fruit number per tree, they're similar. So this gain in fruit size is due to spur extinction, essentially pre-thinning the tree very early on. I'd like to conclude a very important finding in the PIPS program was to look at how productive Australian orchards could be. And the good news is the productivity potential of Australian orchards is high. It's as good as anywhere in the world. And here's a good example of a block of Rosy Glow that we worked on in Victoria. It was managed with optimised tree structure, a really good grower, and also we used 2 levels of spur extinction. At a higher level of spur extinction and crop load 6 buds per centimetre squared of BCA, we achieved 102 tonnes per hectare off that block. Light interception was around 60%. We did find many blocks that we worked on were not as productive, and there were a number of reasons. Sometimes it was hail net affecting pollination. Sometimes it was part of the environment, be it very warm summers, 40 degrees, so fruit don't size. But generally we found that interrows were too wide, so the between row spacings were wider than was necessary. Other reasons were trellising meant that trees weren't reaching their full height potential or were falling over with crop weight. that concludes my talk. There's a bit of further reading should you be interested. Thank you.